Okay, so hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Vit Global. This is where we connect with global first entrepreneurs, TA and people leaders, and remote work experts from all around the world. Our guest today is Jessica Begley, Chief People Officer at Very. Jessica, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Vit. Glad to be here.
Yeah, in fact, it is fantastic to have you here. You've had this amazing path in HR from your time at Bloomingdale's to your current role as a Chief People Officer at Very. So maybe can you give us a quick rundown of your career journey, maybe pointing out some key moments that really made a difference?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vit. So I think it goes back to what always really excited me, interests me. So when I was studying college, I studied psychology and anthropology and human resource development. And a lot of people wonder, where's the intersection there? And it's all about people and culture. So I decided to go on to get my master's degree in organizational psychology. So people who might not be familiar with that, it's the application of psychological principles to the workplace. So it's really looking at things like group dynamics, motivation, behavior. And then after that, I went into my background primarily, to your point, was in retail. Um, Luckily, when I was in retail, that space has changed so much lately. I supported the technical groups within retail several times. I will have to say, my background, I wish I could say I was smart enough to design it. The way it all came together, I wasn't. It sort of just all worked out, but I was really lucky to have exposure to multiple aspects of HR. So I did recruitment, talent development. I was an HR business partner for a number of years. I did talent management, policy writing, compensation, org design. And all of those exposures really set me up for future success. And again, in a way that I wish I could say I was smart enough to design it that way. Um, I came to Very 2.5 years ago to build the people function. So I am the first of my kind at Very, and the idea of having just a whiteboard to build was so exciting to me. And here you come to this fully distributed multinational tech company and the opportunity to build the people function. I was totally sold on the opportunity. Um, my current job covers everything you think of in HR. So I have everything talent acquisition, employee lifecycle from onboarding, comp, benefits, talent development, performance management, employee relations. We also have an ESL academy at Very for people who English is their second language. So my team oversees that. I also have internal communications. So critical for every company, but even more so when you're fully distributed. And then I also have internal events, travel, and IT. So every day is a new adventure, which is awesome. And then, I was really fortunate earlier this year to be asked to join Aedora's advisory board. Aedora is a management technology company focused on leave management with end-to-end employee support. So that. Those are some of the big milestones, and all of these things just get me so excited. I love the opportunity to really shape and mold the experience and culture of companies.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's talk about your current company, Very, right? So
Sure.
with Very being so like spread out across different countries and continents, and we're gonna talk about that in a sec. But maybe you can start with just it would be super cool to hear a bit more about the company itself.
Absolutely. So today we sit at about 115 people. We are currently all Western Hemisphere. So we have individuals. So the United States is our largest country, and then Colombia is actually our second largest country. And then we have kind of an equal distribution of smattering between Canada, Mexico, and Argentina. And then we do actually have someone in Chile and someone in Paraguay right now. So we love the opportunity to have people throughout the Western Hemisphere. So I always say when you look at the countries that we recruit in, we have a population size of 600 million people that we can recruit from, right? So there's this opportunity to find people who have the technical capabilities we look for that also align and are excited by our culture and values. When you are geographically specific, you are restricting yourself in your talent pool. So we love that, and then we love to really celebrate all the different places and culture that we have at Very.
And speaking about that, given various this expansive international team, I'm curious about the details of your global hiring strategy. How do you choose which countries to focus on for different roles? Are there specific markets or target for certain skills or positions? What drives these choices?
I think there's two choices. I think one part is finding the finding the geographies that are rich in the capability that we need. And there's a reality that different markets have different capabilities or maturity of those capabilities. So, for example, like Colombia and Argentina, like they have incredible software developers. But some we've had more difficulty trying to hire, for example, like data scientists in some of those markets just because data science, while there are some, they don't have the maturity. So we don't necessarily, a lot of our engineers are senior or lead level, which means you probably have close to 10 years of experience. Some of those capabilities are just catching on, like there's just degrees being formed in some of them. So we look at where the capabilities are. Now that's not to say there's not unicorns. So typically we will try posting, we test and try a lot at Very. We'll try posting roles in different countries to just see what's out there. And sometimes you find that unicorn, and it's harder to find. um, but really the thing that we are most that we hold in highest regard is, again, one, that they hit the technical capabilities of what we're looking for, and two, that they align with our culture and values, and that's not a specific person or personality. That's about wanting to do work the way we do it and feeling like that's an environment in which you will thrive.
In speaking about talent acquisition itself, right? Talent acquisition practices can be quite different by region, right?
Or
So I know this because we source in 22 different countries, right? So could you maybe
yes.
talk about how finding talent varies across the areas you operate in? What unique challenges and maybe opportunities does each region offer?
Absolutely. So, one of the things I have to say is I think a few years ago, it was harder to identify global talent, particularly being fully distributed, because pre-COVID, people didn't think companies who were fully remote were real companies, right? They were just like, "Oh, that doesn't check out. That makes me nervous." In the post COVID world, people are more open to the opportunity of working fully remotely. In fact, now a lot of people are really interested in remote and hybrid work, but before, so we've caught a tailwind on that I think was unexpected, and not saying we're thankful for COVID, but it was a silver lining. Um, so that's one thing that's really sort of like taken down some of the obstacles there. The other thing that's happened is, man, LinkedIn has taken over. I mean, especially in the countries we exist in, LinkedIn's the place where people search for opportunities now. And so the ability to post individually, you can even promote posting. So we do that a lot. We'll promote in the countries. We also try to leverage. We use Lever as our ATS. Lever allows you to do job wrapping, where you can post a remote job within a country, but select secondary markets. So, for example, we'll post a job in Canada that's a fully remote job, but we'll secondary post the posting in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa. So it will populate when people are searching for jobs, it will populate not just as a Canadian remote job, but it'll actually populate in that secondary market where people are more likely to look for that job. So, really, I think the technology is really helping us here, but there is some work, again, to test and try to really leverage the technology to be able to access people who wouldn't necessarily be going out searching for you in the first place.
And understanding regional differences is key, I guess,
Mm,
for a global first company, right? So
sure.
how do you how do you deal with the cultural and maybe legal complexities of hiring in different countries? Have any regions been particularly challenging or rewarding?
Uh, well, first of all, I think every every location we go to is rewarding. I mean, what an opportunity to get exposure to different perspectives and different experiences. And that's part of what makes it amazing. So I'm a New Yorker. I've lived and worked in New York for a long time. And so when you think about, I think, look, New York is the largest city in the United States, right? Like, and it's the largest by, I think, two times. I think LA is half the size of New York. But if you look at that population, of that 600 million I talked about earlier, it's 1.4% of that 600 million. It is such a tiny, and when you have people in a specific region, you're going to be contained by experiences, by perspective, by day-to-day interactions, by opening up into different cultures, different backgrounds. You gain so much. So I'm really thankful for that. In terms of how we handle legality, so the real answer is we go to the countries we're in because we have a fairly good understanding. The reality is in countries like the U.S. and Canada, we have probably in the countries we're in. We're not in Europe, and that's an important disclosure. For the U.S. and Canada, our employment laws are some of the strictest in all of the countries that we're in. So what we do is we hold all of our employees to those standards that we have set, regardless of where they are. And doing that, even though it might not be exactly what the law is in their country, they appreciate it because it's actually above that law. Does that make sense? Like it actually gives more, it actually gives them more. And by doing that and communicating that up front. So what we do is when we first reach out to an individual, if we're saying, either if they're inbound replying, or if we're sourcing them asking them to consider us, we provide them with a one pager, and we tell them a little bit about Very and who we are and the way that we work and the things that are important to us. We tell them about the compensation right up front. We tell them about the benefits right up front, and we say this is our standard package. And if people at that juncture, and this is a very early on, it's before they've even had a conversation with us. If they say to us, "This sounds great, let's talk," great. Now we are aligned that the expectation is set, and now we can have a conversation. If they say to us, "This doesn't work for me," we totally understand. Absolutely, no problem. If things change in the future and you want to have a conversation, then please reach back out. But that's okay. To me, that creates such a different experience because you've aligned from the very first conversation on where this is headed, and there's no surprises.
Yeah, that's very cool candidate experience. But speaking about legal aspect, I was curious to hear maybe more about the way how you hire those guys. You hire them as contractors, you hire them as full-time employee. Do you use employee of record company like Deal Oyster, or you have your own entities in those locations? Can you talk more about that part?
Sure. So we have a little bit of a smattering, which is tricky to keep up with, but it is important. So we use a PEO for US and Canada. We will likely at some point, so I told you we're at about 115 right now. We will likely move off and probably need to set up our own entities and bring things in house. Obviously, we have business entities that are set up. We just don't have the people entities set up. We're reaching the size where we're probably going to need to do that. We're like really teetering on the balance of, does this make sense to be a PEO anymore? But that's what we do in the US and Canada. We have some contractors through LATAM. We've explored EORs and always look to see. There are some realities. There's some great EORs out there, and we've talked to many of them. And that's definitely a great option for a variety of reasons. A lot of our individuals, especially in certain countries in Latin America, Argentina is one of them. I don't know how much you track the news, but their monetary situation is really delicate right now. Inflation has been really challenging. So they actually prefer to be contractors paid in USD right now. And so for certain people, I know that sounds strange to some people listening. Why would somebody want to be a contractor? But because we can pay contractors in USD, it changes the conversation of what's important to them.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking about Argentina specifically, it's really hard to hire someone as a full-time employee there because of the reason, like you
Yes.
mentioned, because they have like 100% inflation per year.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's insane.
Correct. And there's just really huge fluctuations versus that's where I'm saying like and EORs unfortunately, and I get it, they're following the local laws and so that's why they have to be strict, but EORs tend to have to pay in local currency. It's a standard legality. But again, there are many people in some of these countries who would actually prefer to be paid in USD because again, the currency tends to be steadier.
100%. And speaking about compensation, compensation
Yeah.
policies can be different, from country to country, right? So can you share how a vary handles pay in different regions? Do you follow this
Absolutely.
universal policy, or do you adjust to local standards and living costs?
It's a great question, and it's always a hot topic. I know every company does it differently. What we do is we have regionalized pay structures, but here's how we handle it. So, first of all, we have a published set of compensation guidelines and how we look at compensation. So, anybody who comes in the company can say, oh, okay, this is how we look at compensation country to country. The other thing that I'll say is we publish every single salary on every job description. So it doesn't matter what country it's in. So when you are seeing the job description for a job, you see the salary attached to it. So it's not a surprise. What once you're internal, we have a salary matrix. So for everyone in our technical team, we have a salary matrix that looks at three different things. It looks at their geography, it looks at their function, so software, hardware, firmware, for example, and it looks at their level. So we have a very standardized leveling system that we use for all of our engineering teams. There are published matrices that look at the technical capability necessary by level. And we also have promotion patterns that allow you to move from one to the other. And so our compensation matrix for all of those things is published, and anyone in the company can access it at any day.
That's very cool. That's transparency. That's awesome. In fact,
That's
um,
transparency. And I think it also helps, I think, not just for today, but for the future. So somebody can say, a lot of times in many companies, and I've experienced this, you think, oh, okay, well, next year I want to go up for a promotion, but I don't know what that's going to mean monetarily. I don't know what impact that would be for me and my family. This allows you to look forward and say, okay, if I get promoted to this is what my salary would be. You can work towards that. You can plan for that. Um, I just I just think it creates a different hook in your mind versus the unknown.
that's true. Okay, so your experience has really shown how remote work can be inclusive, in fact, right? So, what are some hands-on ways to create a connected, welcoming environment for such a diverse and spread out team? Can you like share your secret?
I don't know if it's such a secret, and I think I look DEI has had a roller coaster these last couple of years, right? Like that whole concept. And I think I when we do things for our company that are these very inclusive measures, like we don't even talk about them as DEI because I just think they should be embedded in what we do, right? And so and they're intentional, but we talk about them as ways to just appreciate each other's differences. There's that famous Ted Lasso quote, be curious, not judgmental. And so we really try to encourage curiosity in the conversation. And so we really try to have people bring those aspects of their lives into the workplace, right? Because you can see culture in food, in sport, in music, and I think people very are really in awe. They want to learn more. And I think some of that is we have intentionally, part of our culture is we've really intentionally gathered a group of voracious learners. And right, I find when people are perpetual students, they're curious about a wide variety of subjects, right? It's not just one specific thing. So we've done a couple of things. We bring everybody together almost every month as a company into some different types of vehicles. So we have business update twice a year where we go over financials. We have town halls twice a year where people can ask questions. And then one of the most fulfilling aspects is we have something called fireside, and we usually do firesides about 5 times a year. And this is really a gathering of the entire company around focused on culture, community, and fun. This is nothing business related. one of our company's favorite aspects of Fireside is we have a segment called Pull Up a Chair. So get it, Fireside, pull up a chair. And where we highlight people, places, and cultures. So we've done this. We've done pull up a chair Bogota. We've done pull up a chair Argentina. We've done pull up. We've done pull up a chair Nashville. And the idea is that we want to celebrate and we want to learn about these places because people sometimes have this idea of what that community looks like or what that community does on the weekends. And so we have people, and the amazing part of it is people do the same things, right? People go out to restaurants, they listen to music, they have gatherings with their friends and their family. And what this does is it highlights the similarities but then also the uniquenesses, and we try to teach to so people can learn. So we'll define what dishes are, we'll define what, we'll translate words. And so we put together this video segment. Another thing we do is we celebrate all the major holidays in all the countries of residence with a Slack message. So we try to, like, and by the way, some of those, there's a lot, but we try to teach. And so we use that Slack vehicle as a way in our general channel to say, like, hey, today is whatever it is. And then we tell them a little bit about what that holiday is and then how do people celebrate. And then I'd say the last piece of it that we try to do just like day to day is we have social Slack channels. So our Slack is built in a way where there's syntax to it. So we've got internal channels, client facing channels. We have administrative channels, finance channels, marketing channels. They're all coded. And then we have social Slack. And these are everything from social parenting to pets to foods to plants to Star Wars. We've got cars, travel. And what we do is we encourage everyone to post in those channels about their experience. And what this does is if you're sitting in an office space, you're going to have conversations with the people who sit right next to you or the people you're on a project with, but you may not find that commonality with other people. And so, like same thing. I mean, our social pets channel is one of like the busiest channels because who doesn't love sharing pictures about their pets? And all of a sudden, these maybe preconceived notions you had about people in different countries or cultures and the pets they have, all of a sudden you realize we're way more similar than we are different.
Yeah, that's very cool. In fact, I guess you said you have people in Brazil as well, yeah? Like I guess
We don't we don't anymore. There's
no.
Brazilian labor law is pretty challenging. So
Yeah, that's true.
we've tried it. We've tried it.
But
But not
the
now. But Argentina, Mexico, Colombia,
but I guess the same in
US,
Argentina. They
Canada.
have around like 16 public holidays per year, something like that,
Yes.
yeah?
Yes,
Yeah,
they
that's insane.
do. They do. And that's where policy comes into place in creating flexible policies. So the way that we approach that from a day off perspective is, everybody regardless of location has the same number of PTO days, and then we have 8 company holidays. They are US based company holidays, but they are 8, but you can flex them. So any one of those holidays you can swap for any other day. And so it's funny. So I have, some people who are like, I take the US holidays because it's quiet, right? Everybody in the US is off, the clients are off. So I'd rather take the day and just be silent. And some people are like, no, I prefer to take some of the day, not to take my PTO days, but to take a flex holiday into one of the holidays in my country. Um, and we completely support that, but it's just interesting, there's some different approaches to how people take their holidays.
Yeah, that's true. So, with all your like global chart experience, could you talk about like some maybe standout talent or performance management strategies that have, helped you with managing your people? Can you talk more about this?
Absolutely. I love talent development. But I mean, like, I think as a people person, the things that I can do, other than the number one rule in HR, the one thing you can never break is pay people correctly and on time, right? Like, that's the number one rule. But beyond that, the other thing that I can do for people, truly do for people, is help them grow professionally, help them grow in their career. That I take really seriously. So even though our size, we actually have a very mature talent development program here at Very. Again, I talked about we have these published matrices of the capabilities by level, by function. So you have both your technical capabilities and then also your behavioral capabilities. That's really important for us because we're client facing. And so those behavioral capabilities, the ability to communicate, to influence, right? All of those things really critically important. Um, we have reviews once a year. They are not tied to they're tied to promotions, but they're not tied to anything else in terms of pay, which I think is really important. We start our performance that performance process by doing a 360-degree review of every person at the company. And so if you're in engineering, your chief engineer and your program manager are two of your people. You don't get to choose them. And then obviously your manager, but you get to choose one to two other peers that you'd like to provide feedback. We have documented and provide coaching to everyone on what that conversation should sound like, right? Like, talk about what their superpower is, talk about where they have opportunity to grow, and do it in constructive and meaningful ways with examples. That's so important in terms of coaching and development. And then what we do is the manager will deliver that review. If an individual does meet the criteria for promotion, that pushes through into the promotion board. So we have a promotion board process, and then the individual will or will not receive the promotion. Coming out of all of that, regardless of where they go, they create a talent development plan, and that talent development plan then sets the course for what they're going to be doing over the following year. All of our individuals, once they've been at Berry for 1 year, have $2,500 USD, regardless of where they are, $2,500 USD to spend on professional development every year. And so we take that process really seriously. And for us, it's not about geography; it's about growing. As a professional, as a human, and so we really try to make that we enable that in the processes that we've put in place.
I still have a bunch of questions, but we're running out of time. But this one, I should ask this one. So, from your
Okay.
viewpoint, how can AI technology help expand the pool of talent and improve these connections in a globally distributed team?
So I think AI is tricky. I got to be honest. And I like AI. I like AI, but I think it's tricky just because I think we're still learning about ways in which AI may be not it may be discriminatory in ways that we don't anticipate yet. So I think you need to be really really careful with AI right now. And so we use some things, but one of the ways that we approach it in leveraging technology is, if anybody's a TA person out there, for those of you who aren't in TA, you're probably going to fall asleep here for a minute, but just follow me if you are. Boolean search is so critical. And so for every single one of our roles, we've created Google Sheets for all the Boolean search terms for that role. And sometimes there are nuances based on the geographic location because of the way things are termed, right? And so we'll notate that in the sheet. But what we can do is anytime we're searching this, and again, this is sourcing, this is outbound, not inbound. Anytime we're searching for a role, we've got that Boolean string that we're just pulling together based on the role, based on the geography, that we're then able to search. And my goodness, what a way to leverage technology. And again, I personally think the AI is amazing. It's increasing capabilities. Where I use AI a lot is actually thought starters for internal communication. That's how I leverage AI a lot, to like get the not to necessarily write for me, but to get me some good thought starters on things. So I definitely leverage AI, but I think in TA right now, just use it very thoughtfully. And I would encourage everybody, especially tech companies, you're gonna hire, how many software engineers are you gonna hire? How many firmware engineers are you gonna hire? Build those sheets up. Really think about what those search terms that got you the best people, and then go back, look at your top performers, and look and see, how did you find them? What was in their profiles? Pull those keywords out to leverage for your next search. So I think there's a lot of ways you can leverage technology, but you still gotta use your brain. You still have to think about, and reconnect it, reconnect the human aspect of it to the technology. And that's actually where you're going to be the most successful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jessica, for sharing your insights. It was really interesting to hear how Wary has managed to build this strong internal culture as a remote first company. Uh, thanks again for your time, and we wish you all the best in your journey.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much, Fit. I appreciate it. Have a great day.